Welcome to the Deep Dive. Some stories just resonate. They reveal these profound truths. Today, we're diving into one of those. Anthony Doerr's Pulitzer winner, All the Light We Cannot See. Our mission, to really unpack this powerful novel, pull out the key insights, those aha moments that stick with you long after you finish it. Okay, let's get into it.
Yeah, it's quite something, a historical novel set just before and during World War II. And it follows these two main characters coming of age, a German boy, Werner, and a French girl, Marie-Laure. Their paths eventually cross amidst all the conflict. What's really interesting is the structure, too, how it shifts between them and back and forth in time. It pulls you right in.
So let's start with Werner Pfenning, an orphan, grows up in Germany.
Mm.
And he's just brilliant, right?
Yeah.
Especially with mechanics, radios. He finds an old one, fixes it up, even builds his own transceiver.
Which was, a huge risk back then. Very clever kid.
Definitely. And that skill, that knack for radio technology, it catches the eye of, officials with Nazi ties. It's his way out of the coal mines, basically. Gets him into Schultforta.
Right. This elite, rather brutal military school, supposedly for the racially pure. And there, his talents are immediately put to use. He helps this Dr. Hauptmann develop military tech. More radios, tracking devices. He also makes friends, finds a protector almost in Frank Volkheimer, this huge upperclassman.
A crucial relationship for him there.
Absolutely. Eventually, Werner's sent to the front, Russia, then France. He and Volkheimer, they use these transceivers to hunt down enemy broadcasts, resistance signals, which of course is how he eventually hears Marie-Laure.
And then there's Marie-Laure Leblanc. She's living in Paris, and she goes blind at age 6. Her father, Daniel, he's the master locksmith of the National Museum of Natural History, completely devoted to her.
He does this amazing thing, builds this tiny, perfect wooden model of their whole neighborhood.
So she can learn it by touch, navigate her world. It's just an incredible act of love.
It really is. But then the Germans invade Paris. They have to flee. They escape to Saint-Malo to live with her great-uncle Etienne in this tall house by the sea.
And Daniel's carrying something important, isn't he? This stone.
Yes, the Sea of Flames. It's this legendary diamond from the museum. The story goes, the owner becomes immortal, but everyone they care about suffers.
High stakes.
Definitely. In Saint-Malo, Marie-Laure gets close to her great-uncle, who's quite reclusive, and the housekeeper, Madame Manec. A real force of nature, Madame Manec.
But then things get worse. Her father's arrested, sent away. Madame Manec gets sick and dies.
Yeah, her world just keeps shrinking, and eventually Etienne gets involved in the resistance, using his radio, and he's taken away too, leaving Marie-Laure completely alone in this big house.
Which sets the stage for the climax, right? The Allied bombing of Saint-Malo. It's chaos. Marie-Laure is hiding, broadcasting readings over her great-uncle's radio, just sending her voice out there.
While below her, this German officer, von Rumpel, he's dying of cancer, obsessed with finding the Sea of Flames, thinking it'll save him. He's searching the house.
And then Werner, who's nearby, trapped under rubble from a bombing. He hears her broadcast.
A voice he actually recognizes from previous broadcasts. It's like a beacon.
So he digs himself out, races through the burning city to find her, to save her from the bombs and from von Rumpel.
It's this incredible convergence. You, the listener, really see how these two lives, so separate, are pulled together by these invisible threads. War, technology, radio waves.
Yeah, radio waves.
Yeah.
Which brings us perfectly to the title, All the Light We Cannot See. This is where it gets really interesting, I think.
Oh, absolutely. The title works on so many levels. I mean, the most obvious is Marie-Laure's blindness, literally not seeing light, and Werner's radio work dealing with electromagnetic waves, invisible light, essentially.
Right, the book even says, the air swarms with so much that is invisible.
Exactly. But Dewar uses that physical invisibility as a metaphor, doesn't he, for the things we choose not to see. Moral blindness, spiritual blindness.
It makes you think about physical sight, too. Like Marie-Laure's grandfather telling her, open your eyes and see what you can with them before they close forever. It's a call to really look at the world, isn't it? Not just glance. How often do we just not see what's right there?
Precisely. And that connects directly to moral sight, or the lack of it. Werner's journey is a powerful example of this kind of willful blindness. He knows on some level what the Nazis are doing is wrong, but he pushes it away, like when he smashes that first radio he built.
Yeah, that scene with the brick. Cutting himself off from those outside voices, those questions.
He's actively choosing ignorance, in a way. For survival, maybe, but it's a choice.
But then there's that transformation under the rubble, literally blind in the darkness, desperate. He just wants to see again.
And it seems like that moment of total physical darkness is what finally allows his inner eyes, his spiritual eyes, you could say, to open.
He finally sees clearly what he needs to do, which is save Marie-Laure.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What are the invisible truths, the moral responsibilities that maybe you are overlooking? What light are you choosing not to see?
That's powerful. The book also has this deep reverence for the natural world. It presents nature as this immense, complex thing, almost unknowable, something that demands awe, not just analysis.
Yes, and you see that awe in both Marie-Laure and Werner. Despite their different worlds, they share this intense curiosity. Werner's always asking these big questions about physics, about how things work. Marie-Laure finds these incredible worlds in seashells, galaxies of snails, she thinks. She feels the story of life and everything.
I love that. And they both have that moment on the Breton coast, right? Feeling overwhelmed by the sea.
Yeah, Marie-Laure hears its hypnotic voice, and Werner looks out at it and thinks, it seems big enough to contain everything anyone could ever feel. Just pure wonder.
Which is such a stark contrast to the ideology he's surrounded by at Schulpforta, that constant demand for order.
Oh, absolutely. They're told again and again there must be order, and that minds can't be trusted because they drift towards ambiguity, towards questions.
When certainty is what's required. No room for wonder there.
None. But even Werner, caught in that system, he has these moments of doubt. He wonders, isn't life a kind of corruption? You know, the body can never be truly pure. Eating, seeing, it's all interaction, mingling.
Implying that the kind of absolute order and purity the Nazis demand is, well, sterile, lifeless.
Exactly. Life is complexity. It is ambiguity. Trying to force it into a rigid box kills what makes it vital.
It's a good reminder for us, too, I think. Finding that balance between seeking understanding and order, but also embracing the messy, complex, wonderfully ambiguous nature of life itself.
A really key theme.
Okay, let's circle back to that diamond, the Sea of Flames, and its legend. It feels like it raises really big questions about knowledge and responsibility.
Definitely. What do scientists or anyone with knowledge owe to others? How should that power be used? Look at the contrast. The prince in the legend, he just wants the stone's power, doesn't care about the curse affecting others. Von Rumpel is exactly the same, desperate for a cure, blind to the cost.
But Marie-Laure, she just lets it go, returns it to the sea.
Right. Her approach is almost like a naturalist's. Observe, understand, but don't possess or exploit. The book says, to a curator, none is superior to any other. It's about appreciation, not control.
Whereas Werner is an engineer, the text says what he loves most is building things, connecting his fingers to the engine of his mind.
Yeah, and initially he gets lost in the pure joy of creation, of problem solving, building the transceivers. Dr. Hauptmann even encourages this disconnect, telling him it's only numbers, pure math, trying to strip the ethics away.
But Werner can't maintain that separation forever, can he?
No. That moment he decides not to report Marie-Laure and Etienne, that's his turning point. He finally accepts that his work, his knowledge, has real human consequences. It's not just numbers anymore.
Which is incredibly relevant today, isn't it? Technology, knowledge. It always comes with ethical weight. It impacts lives. Another really compelling theme is this idea of choice, or maybe the illusion of no choice. Werner and Volkheimer, for example. They end up at Schulpforta partly because poverty leaves them with so few options. It's economic desperation, not necessarily belief in the ideology, at least not initially.
Exactly. And then there's Frederick, Werner's friend at the school. He comes from privilege, but feels trapped by family and social expectations. He tells Werner, it doesn't matter what I want, and later, your problem, Werner, is that you still believe you own your life. Just heartbreaking.
It feels like the novel is showing us all these constraints, these pressures that limit people's choices.
It is, but then it delivers this incredibly powerful counterpunch. It argues that ultimately, no matter how tight the constraints, how desperate things seem, you're still responsible for your actions.
Werner realizes this himself, right?
Yeah.
Very late in the story.
Yes, that painful thought. Frederick said we don't have choices, but in the end, it was Werner who pretended there were no choices. Owning that denial.
It suggests that feeling like you have no choice is
Right.
well, an excuse, a way to avoid responsibility.
It often is. And look at Etienne and Madame Menek in Saint-Malo under occupation. Etienne feels completely overwhelmed, paralyzed. How do you fight a system? He asks.
And Madame Menek's response is just perfect in its simplicity.
You try. That's it. You do what you can. It insists that there is always something you can choose to do, some action you can take, however small.
Such a vital message.
It really prompts you, the listener, to think about your own life. Where might you feel trapped, like there's no choice? And where maybe could you still find a way to try?
The book also gives us this chilling look at how an ideology like National Socialism works on individuals,
Mm.
how it shapes them. On one hand, it demands conformity. Werner's sister, Judah, sees this clearly. She asks him, is it right to do something because everyone else is doing it?
A question Werner doesn't really want to face. He conforms partly to escape the mines, sure, but he does choose to jump into that system, to close his eyes to certain things.
And the other side of that coin is the need to define yourself against an enemy, an other.
Right. Conformity is actually strengthened by having someone to exclude, someone to unite against. Think of that horrifying game at Schultforta targeting Frederick.
Because he was different. His dreaminess, his otherness, they hunt him down.
And in doing so, Duer suggests they purge that otherness from themselves, becoming this more uniform mass. It's about creating unity through exclusion and cruelty.
So National Socialism twisted these basic human impulses to belong and to be distinct into something monstrous.
Exactly. It warped them, weaponized them, which is, I think, crucial insight for us today, understanding how these oppressive systems work psychologically and why resisting those pressures is so important.
It's also really interesting to hear about Duer's own inspirations. He talks about being kind of in love with the world, wanting to write from a place of awe.
Yeah, and apparently the first little seed for the novel wasn't awe-inspiring at all. It was hearing someone on a train complaining really loudly about a dropped cell phone call.
Really? That's surprising.
It made him think about how much we take technology like radio for granted now. He wanted to recapture that initial magic, that wonder. He also gives a lot of credit to his mother, who was a science teacher. That focus in the book on the physical world, on science as a way to interrogate the world, seems to come partly from her.
And he was very intentional about Werner's character, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Wanting readers to feel that internal conflict.
Yes. He specifically wanted the reader to grapple with Werner's situation, to feel that very morally complicated moment, as he put it, even when Werner is doing things that are technically successful for the German military, like tracking resistance fighters.
Makes sense. So if listeners want to explore these themes further,
We have some great suggestions in the further reading. Sumunk Kid's The Invention of Wings is fantastic for looking at complicity and action against injustice. For a really deep dive into occupied France and the moral struggles there, Robert Kilde's History, Marianne in Chains is excellent. And if you're interested in that theme of scientists and the consequences of their discoveries, you absolutely have to read Richard Rhodes' The Making of the Atomic Bomb, a masterpiece.
great recommendations. Perfect ways for you to continue your own deep dive, connecting these ideas elsewhere. Well, what a journey through all the light we cannot see. We've touched on seeing the unseen, finding that reverence or complexity, the ethics of knowledge, finding agency against the odds and the dangers of ideology.
Yeah, it covers so much ground. And maybe as a final thought for you, the listener, building on all that, what are those invisible things in your own life, the things you might be choosing, consciously or not to see? What light might you discover if you really decide to open your eyes, both literally and metaphorically?
A powerful question to end on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep discovering.